I watched my son say I do to a woman who smiled like an angel, and I said nothing about the $53 million sitting quietly in my name. 5 days later, she arrived at my door with a lawyer, and that's when I realized this marriage wasn't a mistake. It was a heist. Asterisk, when my husband died, he left me everything. Companies, properties, offshore accounts, a fortune most people only read about. But I didn't change my lifestyle. Same house, same old car, same simple clothes. I learned a long time ago, money attracts the wrong kind of love. So when my son brought her home for the first time, I watched carefully. She didn't ask about his dreams. She didn't ask about his childhood. She asked about what he'd inherit. I smiled politely and stayed silent. Asterisk, the wedding didn't feel romantic. It felt scheduled. She chose the date before the venue, booked the photographer before the rings. Every decision was rushed, precise, almost transactional. When relatives asked why everything was happening so fast, she laughed and said, "When you know, you know." But I noticed something else. She always made sure witnesses were around when she was affectionate. Hand-holding during family dinners, kisses when cameras were out. Love on display, not in private. Late one evening, I overheard her on the phone in the garden. Her voice dropped, the sweetness vanished. "I can't wait forever," she whispered. "Yes, I know what I'm doing." No, his mother doesn't suspect anything. When she noticed me standing near the window, she smiled like nothing had happened. A week later, she pushed the prenup, not gently, not thoughtfully. She framed it as a test of loyalty, tears on command, accusations wrapped in affection. "If you loved me, you wouldn't hesitate. My ex never questioned me like this. I just want to feel secure." My son came to me that night, confused, torn between protecting himself and proving his devotion. I told him only one thing: people who love you don't rush you into fear. Still, he signed. Because that's what manipulation does. It makes doubt feel like betrayal. The night before the wedding, she insisted on reviewing our family photos, not the memories, the background. She paused at pictures of old properties, zoomed in on paintings, asked casual questions. "Is this place still in the family? Was that land ever sold? Your husband had good taste, very expensive taste." I answered vaguely, smiled politely. Inside, every instinct screamed. At the ceremony, she cried beautifully. Perfect timing, perfect angles. But when the vows were over, she didn't look at my son, she looked at me. And in that moment, I understood this marriage wasn't about joining a family, it was about access. Asterisk. 5 days after the wedding, my doorbell rang at exactly 9:07 a.m. Not a text, not a call, a legal knock. Through the glass, I saw her first perfect posture. Designer sunglasses, confidence sharpened into something cold. Behind her stood a man in a tailored suit, briefcase in hand, a lawyer. I didn't invite them in right away. I made tea. I let the silence stretch. When they finally sat down, she didn't look around my modest living room. She already knew what she was there for. The lawyer spoke first, professional and rehearsed. "We're here to discuss family asset disclosure. In light of recent marital changes." She cut him off. "We don't want this to be difficult," she said sweetly, resting her hand on the folder like it belonged to her. "But transparency is important now that I'm part of the family." Family. She slid the folder toward me. Tabs, highlighted sections, notes in the margins. She had prepared this before the wedding. She leaned in and lowered her voice. "My husband is very trusting," she said. "I handled the financial side." That was the moment my hands stopped shaking. She wasn't asking, she was claiming. She began listing things I had never publicly acknowledged. Properties sold decades ago. Businesses quietly dissolved. Accounts no one outside my husband and I should have known about. She smiled as she spoke, watching my face carefully, measuring what I knew she knew. The lawyer cleared his throat. "There may be grounds for pre-inheritance protection," he said, "especially considering your age." My age. The word landed heavy in the room. She crossed her legs and finally removed her sunglasses. Her eyes weren't greedy. They were calculating. "If you cooperate," she said calmly, "this stays simple, quiet, family-friendly. And if I don't?" I asked. Her smile tightened. "Then things tend to get uncomfortable." She stood, adjusted her coat, and added casually, "Oh, and I wouldn't wait too long. My husband deserves what's coming to him." That was when I knew she wasn't planning a future. She was planning an exit, and she believed I was the obstacle as they left. She paused at the door and turned back to me. You raised him well, she said. That's why this will work. The door closed. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I picked up the phone and called my son. My son arrived that night without calling. No smile, no anger. Just a quiet, dangerous calm. He placed his phone on the table and said, "She doesn't know, I know." That's when he told me everything. He hadn't gone looking for proof. It found him. A shared laptop she forgot to log out of, a synced cloud account, messages auto-saved. At first, he thought it was harmless, wedding planning chats, shopping lists. Then he opened a folder labeled Timeline. Inside were dated notes. Cold, organized. Engagement secured, prenup signed, leverage achieved, mother-in-law resistance manageable, asset access window 3 to 6 months, divorce strategy prepared. My son's hands shook as he scrolled. There were voice notes. Her voice flat, bored, cruel. He's nice, but he's not forever, she said. His mother is the key. Once she cracks, everything falls into place. Then came the bank research. She had searched my name, my late husband's name, companies that no longer existed, and then the most chilling message of all, sent the night before the wedding. If she refuses, we escalate. Pressure works on people like her. I looked at my son and realized something terrifying. This wasn't greed. This was strategy. We didn't confront her. We didn't warn her. We prepared. Every message copied. Every file backed up. Every voice note timestamped. I called my lawyer. My son called his. By morning, we had something she never expected: control. And then my son said the words that changed everything. Let her think she's winning. Because when people believe the trap is working, they step deeper into it. We didn't confront her right away. That was the hardest part. Instead, we changed, just slightly. I returned her calls faster. My son stopped questioning her spending. We became cooperative. Predictable. Exactly what she needed to feel comfortable. I invited her to lunch, just the two of us. She arrived early, dressed carefully, soft colors, no jewelry, the disguise of innocence. I told her I had been thinking about her visit, about family responsibilities, about the future. Her posture relaxed. I mentioned I'd spoken to an accountant, not a lawyer, an accountant. Her eyes lit up for half a second before she caught herself. I asked innocent questions. What do young couples plan first? Security, property, children. She answered too quickly, too confidently. Then she made her first mistake. She named a company my husband dissolved 15 years ago. I didn't correct her. I just nodded that night. My son said she was suddenly affectionate, overly gentle. She started talking about long-term stability, about protecting assets together. Her language shifted. Not love. Logistics. We delayed. Days passed. She grew impatient. That's when the pressure started. Subtle guilt, soft threats. Families fight over money all the time. You wouldn't want outsiders involved, right? Each word was recorded. Each message archived. We let her talk herself into a corner she couldn't see. Finally, we scheduled a meeting. Her lawyer, ours. She walked in confident. Too confident. She thought this was the moment she'd been working toward. She didn't know it was the moment everything would end. The conference room was quiet when we walked in. Glass walls, neutral colors, no place to hide. She sat beside her lawyer, calm and composed, fingers laced together like she was already victorious. When she saw my son, she smiled and squeezed his hand. He didn't squeeze back. The lawyers exchanged formalities, papers were laid out. She leaned forward first. "We're prepared to move quickly," she said. "My husband and I believe clarity is best." That's when my lawyer slid a single folder across the table. Not thick, not dramatic, just enough. "Before we discuss assets," he said, "we need to address the validity of the marriage itself." She frowned. My son stood up, and played the first recording. Her voice filled the room. "He's not forever. This is temporary." She laughed nervously. "That's taken out of context." Then the screenshots appeared on the screen behind us. The timeline, the divorce strategy, the asset access window. Her lawyer's face changed. Slowly, professionally, irreversibly. My son played the final voice note, the one where she said, "Once the mother cracks, everything falls into place." Silence. Her lawyer closed his notebook. "Did you record this without consent?" she snapped. My lawyer answered calmly. "These were voluntarily shared files on a shared device." Her confidence shattered. She turned to my son. eyes wide, voice trembling. You went through my things. He looked at her, not angry, not hurt, just done. I went through the lies, he said. Her lawyer stood up. I can no longer represent you. That was the moment she realized. The room had turned against her. The annulment papers were placed in front of her. Bafdrad, intentional deception, financial exploitation. No settlement, no claims, no inheritance. She didn't sign right away. She looked at me then, really looked at me. You planned this, she whispered. I smiled softly. No, I said. You did, she signed. Weeks later, my son moved back home. We cooked together, talked late into the night. I finally told him about the inheritance. The number didn't impress him. The lesson did. Money shows you who people are, he said, but values show you who stays. We invested quietly, donated generously, lived simply. And the woman who tried to steal her way into our lives, she lost everything she thought mattered, because the greatest mistake a manipulator can make is believing kindness is weakness. Sometimes, silence isn't ignorance, it's strategy.